everyone. We've decided to meet today just so that you can get to know who we are and who some of the fellows are and who some of the members are of the Coaching Psychology Network. So we've got the amazing Hazel Anderson Turner, author, here. And I'm Kim Carr, and we've obviously been in the network for a few months. We joined as fellows, and we thought it would just be nice for you to know who's around and get to know us a little bit. We've briefly met, but we're also using this call to ask the questions that we haven't asked of each other that we really want to know as well. So over to you, Hazel.
Oh, I'm starting. Um, so so I call myself a business and coaching psychologist. So I think I'm an accidental coaching psychologist because I have always wanted to be an occupational psychologist, and my first degree was in management, and then I did a degree in psychology, and I wanted to put them together to solve all the ills of organizations. And then during COVID, I lost a lot of my leadership facilitation and organizational development work, and basically became a coach and got a contract. Not became a coach. I was trained as a coach, but my coaching work took over, and I was commissioned by the NHS to do resilience coaching. Um, and it was, I think, about a year ago that someone that was going through the chartership process said to me, "Oh, Hazel, you're a coaching psychologist. Why aren't you doing this accelerated chartership route?" And I was like, "Am I?" Uh, and I looked into it. I thought, oh gosh, I am. That is what I'm doing, and most of my work is around delivering one-to-one coaching, team coaching, and teaching coaching skills as well. And yeah, and I think because I use acceptance and commitment therapy, so a psychological approach um, in a coaching setting, again, that thing of I'm bringing together psychology and coaching within my work. Is that okay for starters?
That is okay for starters. I just kind of threw it at you. So what you're saying is your coaching philosophy is built on your experience with leadership, and then you moved into the NHS, but behind that you've got acceptance commitment theory
We have different names, but yeah, therapy is the main.
therapy.
Yeah.
And then what else? Because I know you've got some other bits and bobs in there too with your philosophy.
So positive psychology has always attracted me. So the work of Barbara Fredrickson, that kind of approach really appeals to me. Using appreciative inquiry in my work is really important. And also, I know we've both been trained in the eight tensions, so this existential psychology, which again I think links really nicely with acceptance and commitment therapy in the sense of this search for meaning that humans have. So there's definitely that, underneath my philosophy.
Yeah. And we met, as you said, didn't we, on the eight tensions coaching. And it's funny when we ask now about what's your coaching philosophy, because before I went for the chartership, I would have been going, oh, but because you have to talk about it all the time now, I kind of know and I can say it. But it was going through the chartership that made it really clear to myself. Oh, that's what I do. A bit like you when someone said to you, "Are you a coaching psychologist?" And you went, "Am I?" And we both were like, "Oh, yes, I am." And so if there's anyone out there who's thinking, "Shall I go for chartership?" You probably are, and it's just the process helps you realize how much you are, and then you're like, "Oh gosh." So shall I share my philosophy, which is
Yeah,
similar?
yeah, go for it.
So mine was embedded in positive psychology and coaching at MAPS EP, like lots of people have done that. And I went into that because I was a teacher of sixth form and a pastoral lead for 500 sixth formers. And they were very, well, they were languishers, although I didn't know that term at the time, but I could see this set of young people who were not flourishing. They weren't depressed or had mental ill health. There was this big section who were not happy. And I started doing that in the school and then thought I want to do this more and learned, oh, that's positive psychology, and on off I went. So that was my avenue, working with teachers, head teachers and students. And then a little bit like you, I added cognitive behavior coaching that really embeds my psychology. And then I wanted to move a little bit away from education. So I didn't do young people anymore. I just did teachers, head teachers. And then I got an invitation to work for the NHS like you, but I think very different. I must ask you about that because
Mm.
I primarily work with junior doctors, actually termed now resident doctors, right up to consultants level, and I'm also a supervisor of the coaching team who does that. Who are you working with in the NHS?
So mine are they're leaders. So some of them are operational, some of them clinical, so that there is a real mix. But I think a bit like you with my journey. So when we first started, when COVID was hitting, it was anybody that needed support, and I think it's developed. I've got a team that work for me that do a lot of the the different kind of more frontline.
Mm.
And then, yeah, I tend to work with, I think because I've got this specialism in burnout prevention, I'm tending to work with people who are, experiencing high levels of stress, very complex environments, who are new into role, in leadership positions. So that tends to be the people I'm working with.
Yeah, so we've got some similarities in our philosophy, some similarities in who we work with. But we were just talking before we came on, weren't we, that in my private practice, I've got an eclectic mix of people because I really like that feeling of not completely niching, because my niche really now is resident doctors, but then I have this other side that goes from, we were just saying, hip hop producer dancers to people who work in physics to people, teachers, head teachers. Who else did I say? Like just random. Oh, and I've got a lovely adventurer who's my client. So it's still all about well-being, resilience, optimism, and human thinking, but I haven't niched. Would
Mm.
would you say you've niched?
And I think this is really interesting. Because obviously there's lots of chat about niching, isn't there? And I think it is helpful in the sense, and if you think so, I'll have been in business in March 8 years, and I think I niched quite early in that kind of well-being space, and resilience. It was more kind of resilience then. And now, my clients in the NHS call me the burnout queen, which I'm not sure if that's a good title, but so that is very much, one of my niches. And I don't know if I've mentioned I've got a book coming out on Friday, which is Coaching Through Burnout. So there's definitely that.
Yes.
However, I really want to challenge this idea that there are lots of coaches out there who are just doing coaching, because I think when I'm talking to people starting in business, I'm really keen to share that over the 8 years, every year my business has looked different, and it's had a different mix of activities that I've done, clients that I've worked with, mix of, you know, business, private client. And at the moment, I'm working half of the week as an OD consultant in a fire service, because last year a lot of the coaching work went quite quiet, and because I'd taken my eye off the ball and I was writing a book, I actually just needed some steady income coming in. I needed to not worry about going out and selling. And also I love this company, and I wanted to be around people again. I feel like in a coaching setting, often we give a lot to others, and understandably nobody's asking us stuff. So it's been nice just being in a normal office. But I think this myth that we need to be a coach, you have to be doing just coaching all the time. Whereas I think a lot of us are doing a lot of different things as well. I don't know if that's your experience of within your business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it goes in fluctuations, doesn't it? Where 3 years ago, I didn't have any doctors, and now I'm coaching loads of doctors. And then I'm also doing some training. I'm also doing a little bit of speaking. Um, I think it just changes. And I would say that to anyone because we have this fear of missing out, don't we? I'd love to be doing some research. I'd love to be writing up my research for my master's, but it's just not going to happen because right now it's busy with the coaching side. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, I was doing more training. I'm doing, I just said to you, I did a retreat, which I absolutely loved. I never thought I'd do a retreat day. That was like completely away from what I would think I would be doing. And I've got so many research ideas, but I just know they won't be happening this year because I'm busy coaching. And I think what you said is if there's anyone out there who's joining the network and they're thinking, I've either got too much of this or too little of this, or I haven't even got started, it sometimes paid work is brilliant, isn't it? For the reason you've just said, because it almost gives you that freedom to explore in that other area. And I would say anyone who's setting out and they think I'm just going to do coaching, just I would say spread your wings a little bit. It's going back to Natalie's opening up and narrowing down, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll help use them, but
Yeah,
you
and I think and again, for me going and doing a piece of work in an organization, I think there's part of me going, well, you failed in some way. You put this lovely persona on LinkedIn that everyone always says to me, "Oh, you're doing so well and you're doing all this, fantastic stuff." And yes, I am. That doesn't mean that, I'm having money thrown at me and that, that it's really easy to run a business. It's really tiring
yes.
often to run a business and is all on your shoulders, isn't it? And I think yeah, it's not a failure to diversify and do different things. And yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. If you've got something that's a bit more solid over here, then it's easier to play over here. And I think the other thing is, and I think why the network is fantastic, is that what I learned quite early on was how important your network is. And I thought that that meant potential clients. Actually, when I think of the number of referrals and recommendations or people that I've gone to do associate work for, that have come from the network of people, like you, Kim, that network is as important, if not more important, than your kind of client network, because
Yes.
I've already contacted people on the network to say, I've seen you've got a specialism in this. I really need a coach in my associate pool that has that specialism. Would you be happy to come and work with me? And I've got some work for you. And I don't know, it feels like a really important thing to help people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've loved that side of it, the collaboration, but also helping other people, like people who are on chartership, the pathway.
Mm.
I only know what I learned through my lived experience of doing that. So I can offer that, what I wish I'd done that I didn't do, and what I could have done more efficiently or whatever. But then you've got these special interest groups where there's 3 or 4 people who've gone through chartership and they've had a different experience and they can just lend so much wisdom or a tip or some clarity on something that you've been on your own busily making this chartership application. So that's been a gift, having that. Well, I didn't have the support because the network came after, but giving back almost of what you went through, I think is really useful. And celebrating and cheering those people who've done it because and because you're going through it, it's hard work. And your family, you go get charged and they go, what's for tea? Whereas everyone else who's been through it is like, well done you, that's amazing. So I love that side of it. I absolutely love the webinars. And if you're out there and you're thinking of joining and you haven't, if you see this, um, I thought, I can't do that. I've got too much on. But I love the webinars and I love it particularly if you are applying for chartership because you get these other sides of psychology that you are perhaps not using or you've forgotten about. I mean, I was a psychology teacher. How can I have forgotten about them? But someone else brings them to life in how they're using them. I've got to watch yours. I really want to. And I've got a list of all the ones I want to watch. So that's good, that learning, because I've got love of learning. And the other thing with collaborations is if you've got something missing and you know it's missing in your coaching world, there's so much wisdom around that. So, for example, in my bit of the NHS, they use a lot of Myers-Briggs. So I was sending people off to have their Myers-Briggs test done, and then they were coming back, and I kind of had a knowledge, but I didn't have a deep knowledge. And then met Angelina through the coaching, and I've done her Type Pro course now. So she's giving her expertise. I'm learning, but because she's in the network, and you leave training, I can go back and ask any question because she's around, and I can also watch her using it. So yeah, they're just three things that come off the top of my head that I think I'm so glad I joined the network.
Yeah. And also, I think anything that helps you, like I say, can feel quite lonely when you're working for yourself. And I'm kind of like anything that helps me feel connected to other people, I think is really important. And also people who are, like you say, so generous with their time and their expertise. Because, this is quite a new thing, isn't it? This coaching psychology, you know, title. And so
Yes.
again, I think being being an early, I don't know, proponent of our area of expertise, I think it's nice to hang out with your people, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And what did Gary call it? Geeking out with your people.
Yeah.
I mean, where else can you do that? And it is true. You look at people on LinkedIn, like you said earlier, and I'm always like, I told you, did I? Hazel Anderson Turner, the author, and I would never have like messaged you and said, "Oh, hi," but just have these conversations now. We know, and I love how you said, "Don't believe it's just like that on LinkedIn," and it's the same for me. I hardly put anything on it, but it's that feeling of everyone's doing it, everyone's succeeding.
Mm,
Actually, that hard work, and I think as well around practical things like marketing and selling that I don't know very much about, and just seeing and people being generous with that of this is where I advertise or this is who I talk to, and just having that generosity to say, why don't you come and do some work for me like you've done with your people? I think that's wonderful.
yeah. Yeah. And I think as well it's that, obviously my mind's been really focused on selling selling my book or getting my book out there. And again, I was thinking, yeah, okay, it's important that, leaders see it and the people that at the end want to see it. But to be honest, when I think about how many books I recommend as a coach,
Yeah.
actually, if I've now got a community who I can say, hey, I've written a book and I hope it's going to be really useful and both for you as an interest as a coach, but also for your clients. And again, it's a space where you can do that in a genuine way. It doesn't have to be a big kind of selling thing. It's there going, I've got something of interest and I'm trying to be useful. And again, I think that's really nice
Mm.
that there's a lot of people sharing stuff, and some of that is about coming on courses and that there's a selling element, but I think mostly it's about we're all so keen to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
are. And I think knowing the name behind like your book, I'm definitely going to buy your book. I've told you already. But I know already most of most of the doctors are near burnout that I'm coaching. And so of course I'm going to buy your book because I've got my methods, but you'll have something completely different because of your philosophy.
Mm.
So of course I'm going to buy it, but then I'm going to recommend that to the coaching team, my fellow coaching team. And I'm at a hospital in Milton Keynes, so I would leave them going, "Oh, good luck, everyone." But now I can go, "Here's Hazel's book." I need it quickly because I'm going on Friday. And it's that, isn't it? It's you want to support people who you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and what I would say, if we're doing this chat for any other reason, is if you're sitting there and you're not daring, not you might not be daring, you're too busy probably to come in and comment or just to spend some time in there. I would really encourage you to come in and get to know people, because the collaborations and the bits you don't know because you haven't had a chat or a conversation are crucial. It's getting to know everyone, isn't it? Which I know Marie's doing some work around us all getting to know each other a bit better, which would be fabulous, because I know there's some names on there that I don't know, and there's lots of names I don't know, and I would love to know, oh, who are you and what have you done? Because we're generally nosy people as coaches, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And I think it's an open door, isn't it, to message someone and say, oh, I'd love to have the opportunity to get to know you better. And I think, there are the spaces, aren't there, to do that. And it is so often it's time because it's not paid time. And I absolutely get that. It's I guess again, it's prioritizing yourself and your needs around being with your people and building those relationships. This is about a long-term thing, isn't it? So I guess that's what I've got in my mind. And even if I'm just dipping in when I can,
Yes.
um, I'm doing it for because relationships are really important.
Yeah. We've both said this, haven't I? I've actually put it in my diary now where I try and come in and make a half an hour in a week, or, rather than just coming in and catching up, that I've got to get better at that, of coming in and going, right, what are the webinars that are coming up, putting them in my diary so I watch them at the time, because otherwise this list is going to build. And also the special interest groups that, there'll be times when you have a lot of time, because that's how coaching is, isn't it? So
Mm.
I'd love to go and look at the some of the work that I've never even looked at before, like the neuroplasticity stuff. Fascinated by it, really want to know more, but just haven't gone in there. So it's just been brave and going and saying, hello, here I am. I don't know very much. Tell me more. Because I know that's happened in the chartership special interest group. People have come in and said, oh, I'm really at the beginning. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to do it, but come anyway, because everyone's so lovely, aren't they? And friendly, I
Yeah,
find.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's probably enough. People have probably heard enough for us
It's
today.
probably more than enough, actually.
So yeah, and obviously if you want to come and do a fireside chat like we've just done, then yeah, just get in touch and we'd be happy to talk some more, either of us, or yeah, facilitate another conversation. But we hope that that was helpful.
Thank you, Hazel. Do you want to mention your book again?
No, I think I've mentioned it enough. At least I've got one sale.
Yeah, me. I'll have more by the end of the week for you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.